Fit for Life Radio, episode number 64. Your hosts, Gary and Will,
Hello,
coming at you. I am Gary,
I'm Will.
and today we got a good one. We are coming at you with some more studies from our Precision Nutrition Academy that we're in. They do these research studies and kind of summarize and throw them out there. So we found that it's been good to go over, very relatable for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that they hit home for a lot of people.
And today we are going to be talking about processed foods, specifically ultra-processed foods. You know, when you think of chips, donuts, things like that.
Pie.
How, quote-unquote, bad are they? And really what we want to get to is how much can you include in your diet and be successful. So, and in general, obviously successful we're going to define as attaining, maintaining a healthy body weight, sustainable nutrition that doesn't feel like it's being forced for you to attain and maintain your body weight, supports your lifestyle, things like that. So hopefully you'll get some good takeaways. Probably you'll realize stuff you already know as far as the extremes on both ends. But we're going to dive in. So ultra-processed foods. How much are most people eating? Well, in America,
This still blows my mind.
it's probably what you expect. More than 50%. So specifically from this, 57.6% of Americans
Of the average American.
Yeah, are let me rephrase that. The average percentage of daily calories, 57.6% comes from ultra-processed foods of the average American. So most people are eating majority of their calories from ultra-processed food.
Which are like what you would think of as a processed food, like, cereal and snacks and
basically
and things like
sugar,
that.
flour, oil.
Yeah.
I mean, you could break it
In
down.
any form.
So you break it down. Sugar is a ultra-processed version of, comes down from a sugar cane all the way down to what you see it as. Oil is typically, always ultra-processed, right? Most foods, you think of an almond. Think of how almond oil exists, or even olive oil. Specifically, the bad ones that you see a lot are like canola oil. So, where's all that oil come from in an almond, right? It takes a lot of effort to get it down to this liquid form, which is easily consumed, right? So, what was the other one? Flour, right? So obviously flour, same thing. You see like a thing of wheat, there's a lot of steps to get it down to that fine product. So, and then most ultra-processed foods are a combination of oil, flour, sugar. So, that is majority of people's diet. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, it's quite simple. The problem with consuming highly processed foods are, one, there's two main problems. One is that they're easy to overconsume, right? It's a lot easier to overeat calories eating these foods because per bite, that's what I always like to think of it as.
That's a good way to put it.
Bite, you're just consuming way more calories, right? So we'll take a simple one, apple. Unprocessed apple. You take a bite of apple, the biggest bite you can take, all right? Let's say average apple is 100 calories. You could maybe get, let's even be generous and say that someone could eat a quarter of the apple with one bite.
Just
So that's
25 calories.
25 calories. All right, now let's take apple pie. Let's take a big bite of apple pie. That same size bite. You could easily, dude.
What's a slice of apple pie? Probably 400 calories.
500. You easily in that bite you could get in 150 calories. So you take 4 bites of apples, you take 4 bites of pie, you start to see per bite the hole that you're digging, right?
And then you look at like
the effect on the brain. Like that apple's going to be good, but you're not going to be like,
I got to get 2 more apples, but pie, like you're going to go get another slice of pie. Well, you'll be more likely to get that slice of pie, but nobody ever, eats 8 apples in a row.
So that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Then we also have, in the same sense, if we know, look, like calories aren't unlimited, there's a certain amount we kind of need to eat. Well, if 60% of your calories come from highly processed foods, which are typically less nutrient dense, then you're crowding out the amount of nutrition you can eat.
Yep.
Right? And that's also going to affect your satiety. Foods that have more vitamins, more minerals, more micronutrients are going to have a higher satiety effect.
Because your brain's not seeking them out anymore.
Exactly. So a lot of times on a highly processed diet, the reason then we're still always hungry is our brain can be seeking out nutrients we're missing, right? And it's not getting them. So you still have a nutrient hunger, even though you've consumed. So you have a micronutrient hunger, even though you've consumed plenty of macronutrients.
Yeah. That's a big one, I think.
No bueno. All right. So now that we've kind of established where we're at, most people eat almost 60% of their calories from highly processed food. Why that's bad? So you're probably thinking, well, heck, like,
let's cut them all out.
Let me cut them all out. Okay. 0 to 60. Well, the problem is
0.
Going 100% Spartan isn't the answer either.
Yeah, that usually falls flat as well. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we always talk about extremes, and usually extremes just don't work. There's a small percentage that will, but for most people, it's just not going to be sustainable, or you're just, going to fall off.
Yep. And kind of along with this study, there was one done by Arizona State University, and it showed that dieters who had kind of negative messages about unhealthy foods, which is like food shaming, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't eat sugar. Sugar is like crack cocaine, right? When you hear stuff like that, so you start to think, anything with sugar is bad. And even though we were just talking about highly processed foods and the problems with them, it doesn't mean that they're evil and bad.
No.
So when we do kind of start to put that mindset in of good versus bad, it's going to lead us to increased cravings for those foods, right? And you see this with and this is what their study from Arizona State University found out, that it increased their cravings for the foods they could not have, and they ended up eating more of them, right? And they ended up having these binge episodes.
Yep.
So, and think about it with a kid, with anything. You tell someone not to do something, you want it more, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the 100%, no processed foods, and ultimately too, a stance we take on that is, it's not realistic. Like,
no,
our food environment, if you do anything social, is going to involve these foods at some point or another. You're going to have to face them. They're going to come, birthdays and social events, and even the grocery store, and bringing them in your own house. You have to learn how to live with them. So the answer, from the study and a lot of looking into it, is kind of what we always preach: what's boring, but somewhat moderation, right?
Yeah.
So the old 80-20.
80-20, man.
So they have found, if you limit 10 to 20% of your calorie intake to highly processed foods, is actually kind of a sweet spot. So you're getting enough nutrients. Yeah, sweet spot. Pun intended. You're getting enough nutrition from your whole foods, your unprocessed foods,
your 80%,
to where you're not, drastically missing a lot of things, and then you probably feel, nothing's off limits. If I want something, I can have a little bit of it. So now you're not going to create those huge cravings and that on-off binge cycle by allowing some of it in your diet.
Yeah.
And you can do that a bunch of different ways. They don't really get into it here, but I know from our experience working with people and ourselves, some people do good with a little daily discretionary calories. So you have a little treat or two, something every day. Some people can
the Diego.
Yeah, the Diego.
Little ice cream every day.
Sometimes, holding off for the weekend, and you get to have, a treat that you kind of saved up for. Things like that. Or some even having no plan for the daily, no plan for the weekly, but you just tell yourself nothing's off limits, and when you want it, you have it in an appropriate portion size, right?
Yeah, you just fit it in wherever you want to.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll find when you tell yourself you can have it, you realize most of the time you don't even really want it.
Yeah.
So, little mind games like that, and
they matter though.
Yeah.
They absolutely do.
And if you're coming from a place where you eat a lot of highly processed foods, so you're one of those people where 60% of your diet comes from highly processed foods, it's not going to be as simple as turning the page.
No.
There's going to be where you crack, because a lot of what we do is like eating wise, nutrition wise. It's not just about the food
No.
and the food choice.
There's a lot of layers.
There's a lot of layers. So we'll dig into that a little. So when your diet is full of highly processed foods, like we said, it's typically often deeper than just the food. It could be you choose fast food because you're too busy to pack a lunch, right? Okay, so time constraints, or maybe we're not managing our time well. It could be feelings of loneliness, anger, sadness to celebrate, something we've talked about on a recent podcast. We could be, eating pints of ice cream every night because we're trying to avoid our feelings and emotions, right?
Which is a huge one, I think, these days.
Another good example they talk about is, do you snack on crackers or chips or whatnot, kind of all night to get energy and stay alert? Because, while we're eating, we're consuming food. It is signaling that signal to the brain. So we are alert. And the reason we're trying to do that is because we only get 3-4 hours of sleep a night.
And you're trying to just,
Yep.
keep putting gas in the engine as it quickly burns up, and
and that's just a short-term fix, right? Or it's a short-term fix for your alertness problem, and then it's a long-term problem when it comes to consuming all those calories. So, and then the other is just your environment, right? A lot of times we eat these foods because that's what our family's eating, that's what people are bringing in the house
or the office.
We gather with our friends, and it's the purpose of getting together. So addressing these things is going to have to happen, right? It's not just as like, okay, I'll stop eating apple pie and I'll just start eating apples, right? So be mindful of those deeper reasons. And then, so with that, some fun kind of scale.
Yep.
So like we said, we don't want you to think good or bad, that we'll never have this food, it's bad, it's going to make you overeat.
Yeah, process doesn't equal like bad. It's just
it is.
It is
right?
like it's just
so it's understanding the time, the place, the circumstance. When if you're going to allow yourself 10 to 20% of your calories, well, where does that fit in? Well, or where maybe depending on your goal, are some processed foods helpful? So
we can go through a couple of those for sure.
And think of it on a sliding scale, right? Not a light switch, not on, off, good, bad. Just more a scale of more often, less often. So for example, sweet potato, right? Obviously, it came out of the ground. It has
whole food, unprocessed,
rough skin all over it and dirt. And you got to wash it off and cook it. That is your whole unprocessed sweet potato. Then you can take it a step further into sweet potato fries, right? So now you've taken that potato, you've cut it up, you probably tossed it in a little oil,
a little salt,
some seasonings, and then you cook it up. And since the food is peeled, cut into pieces, right? We're processing it ourselves to make it a more tasty and easier version to eat, right? And then we're adding some processed oil to it, heightening the flavor, the food reward. So that version of a sweet potato, now sweet potato fries, is a little more processed. Then we have highly processed sweet potato pie. So again, we've added more to it.
About it.
We've added some sugar to it. We've added some butter to it.
Some marshmallows on top.
We've added some marshmallows.
Pecans.
You pureed it all, made it really easy to eat.
Yeah, you digested the sweet potato already, basically.
You add wrap some crust around that bad boy.
God.
Well, again, sugar, flour, oil. Now you're looking at highly processed, right? Everything about it's highly processed. Like there's a little bit of sweet potato, it was pureed down, and then you added a bunch of other processed foods. You took the sweet potato and made it super calorie dense, super easy to overeat. Now, with that said, there's a time and place.
Yep.
It's Thanksgiving, right? It's tradition. You're with your family.
Do it, baby.
Go for it. Like Thanksgiving's one day a year.
But just not like every Tuesday.
Yeah, it's your birthday. Okay, 2 days a year. You're taking a cooking class or something, and you learn it, right? Okay, it's 3. You see what I'm saying? Like even if you had sweet potato 4 or 5 times a year, that's nothing, right? Now, if you're starting to let pie creep in on the daily,
like you have a daily pie,
then you're gonna have issues. So, and again, you could maybe make the pie work if you portion it out right, make it fit, but then that comes down to, can you eat half a piece of a pie every day and then all of a sudden you might notice that you cannot manage that food.
That turns into 1 or 2
and it
slices.
turns into half a
half
a pie. So then maybe that's not a food you should include daily, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can find something you enjoy that you can
manage better.
Yeah. another good example. So the apple we talked about, right? So apple, unprocessed, whole apple, picked off the tree.
Pretty satisfying to eat one apple.
You can take that into apple sauce, right? So we peel the apple, cook the apple, mash the apple. Now it's in a little bit easier form to eat. Some of the fibers stripped from it. It's still just the apple, maybe some water, a little bit of salt, maybe some cinnamon or something. Yeah, so it's going to be easier to overeat. But now, if you're someone who's looking to, maybe you want to gain muscle, you have a very highly active lifestyle, you have to eat a lot of calories just to maintain your weight. Now, a food like applesauce is going to be probably more helpful, right?
Yeah, because it's easier to eat.
It's easier to eat to help you get the calories in, and it's not super processed to where it becomes like candy and
you're gonna eat a tub of applesauce.
It's out of control, right? Which, if we take it another step forward, then you have something like apple muffins, apple pie, things like that. So again, you see when we get into highly processed, it's normally when we take a food, make it very easy to eat, and then add more calories to it that are also processed. So in this case, like we talked about early in the podcast, whether it's pie or muffin, you're adding flour, sugar, butter, or oil, right? So, and then we'll do another one, something a little more protein based. Let's go with chicken. So you can have a rotisserie chicken.
Just a whole chicken.
That's the ingredient, chicken, cooked. And then you could take that whole baked chicken, turn it into chicken nuggets, right? So now we're taking flour,
oil,
salt, tossing it, cooking it. So now it's easier to overeat because it's a little more delicious, right? And it's more calorie dense per bite. You know, the bite of grilled or baked chicken versus the bite of fried chicken, there's more calories per bite.
Yep.
Right? And if we're going to eat 15 bites of chicken, well, the more processed foods can be more calories in those 15 bites, right? So even though it felt like the same amount of food, it wasn't. It was a lot more. So again, that's not saying don't ever not have chicken nuggets.
If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late. So having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's one scoop mixed in water once a day and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out.
But they should be a smaller part. If like that's your lunch every day and it starts to make up a bulk of your diet, well, it's going to be a lot easier and more likely that you're overeating.
I think it'd be good to touch on another, what we can call processed food that I think is helpful for people, which is like protein, right?
Yep.
Whey protein being the most common one.
Yeah, so that's where, not all processing either is, as we just mentioned, typically it's a bunch of stuff added. It can be, highly processed things added to food.
Or something completely stripped down.
Sometimes it's just stripping something down a little, and it could have a beneficial reason. Like a lot of people struggle to eat enough protein to support their goals, right? Well, protein powder is processed, right? It comes from milk. Milk in its whole form, protein powder is a processed version of that, right? So like whey protein is just the whey from the milk. Milk is made up of fat, whey, protein, and casein protein, so it's kind of isolating out. So really, if you want to know, it comes from it's a byproduct of the cheese making process. So when you make cheese, you're basically letting it sit, and the whey part of the milk naturally separates, and then the casein part and the fat is what makes cheese. So then the whey can actually be dehydrated, made into a powder, whey protein, and then there's some flavoring, stevia, some sucralose, whatever kind of artificial sweetener added to it, and then boom, you have protein powder. So while it's processed, it can actually, a lot of people find cool, like adding this protein into my diet helps boost my protein intake, which makes my satiety better, and I eat less of other stuff, and it satisfies my sweet tooth.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden,
being processed, it's like generally a little easier to eat, right? Like I know a lot of people, myself included, I literally just ate this. We'll add it to, say, Greek yogurt, and it doesn't really add a whole lot in terms of volume to, my yogurt. However, my yogurt, which is probably, we'll say, 25 grams of protein, I just added, we'll say, another 35 grams of protein. It didn't really change my volume, thus making it a little easier to get a little bit more protein in. So that's kind of the flip side of something being easier to eat, when it is a protein-rich source like that. So there can be something, some good things that come from, we'll say, processed foods.
Yeah, a lot of my diet is slightly processed foods because I'm highly active and then I walk a lot, lift weights 3 or 4 times a week, have been working out for 10 years, so for my frame have a decent amount of muscle. So when I just want to maintain my weight, I still need a decently high amount of calories, and it's just easier to get it with foods like white rice, Greek yogurt, which is slightly processed from what milk is. So those foods in general, I like to have. It's easier for me to eat, get my carbohydrates from a little more processed carbohydrates versus trying to eat a ton of. If I was to have I eat so much rice. If I had brown rice,
that'd be terrible.
The fiber intake would be through the roof. It'd be hard to eat enough. Or I've even done this and run into this if I try to get all my carbohydrates from potatoes. Right, potatoes are such a voluminous, filling, high fiber food that I can't eat enough if I was just to eat just whole.
That'd be a lot of
potatoes. Now, if I'm dieting and my calories are way less, I actually find. Cool, let me switch from rice to potatoes.
They can be helpful because they're more filling.
Because then they're more filling.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
So, it's nuance, right? And that's where it can be confusing because you could see, so-and-so eats white rice, but then I thought processed foods were bad, So that's where it depends on the goal.
Yeah, and think about, they can be a tool. Like most things can be, they're not good or bad. They're just dependent on your situation. And like Gary said, he needs to eat a lot of food, so they're helpful. If your goal is to lose weight and you can't eat as much food, you want things that have a higher volume than something that's super processed.
Yep. So full circle, understand that a major problem with in general America and the rest of the world's overweight, obesity issue is highly processed foods, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we don't want to say, don't think of foods as good, bad, on, off. Think of it as more a dial. But in what this study and kind of report from PN is finding is that if your diet is majority ultra-processed foods, which most Americans is, almost 60%, bad things are probably going to happen, right? So now on the flip side of that, do we go 0%, don't ever touch ultra-processed food? No, they see that with that also comes some issues, which is typically you feel super restricted and end up binging and eating more anyways.
Which creates some real bad
So,
relationships with food and things
mental
like that.
stuff and obviously physical results. But then, so the sweet spot is probably the old 80-20, right?
80-20.
Don't bash them. Don't leave them out completely. Make majority of your diet whole unprocessed foods, and then leave room for some of your favorite treats or some highly processed foods that you enjoy or that make your nutrition and diet feel sustainable, right? Ultimately, what's going to be the healthiest choice, and this is the thing we love to use, is whatever approach is going to help you attain and maintain a healthy weight and support your lifestyle, that is going to be the best diet for you. And for most people, I know for me included, knowing I can have some treats makes things more sustainable and enjoyable.
So
I'm
the same exact way.
In that sense, you could like I would argue some of my favorite treats are healthy. They're essential to my healthy
To your
diet
lifestyle.
because they make it sustainable. So and they support my body weight and my activity level, right? So that like they're no more less important than the blueberries in my diet, right? So if I have some ice cream that I look forward to every week, that's as equally important as my chicken breast and blueberries. So I think once you understand that and kind of like that 80-20, and yeah, if your goal, and I would say this, like I'm more 90-10, right? But my goal, body composition,
Yeah, you're leaner
than
than
it
most
needs to
people.
be, right? So it's gonna, probably take a little less wiggle room. But that's for you to find out. But in general, you don't want to roll. You don't want over half of your calories to come from
No.
unprocessed food. And I've even tried this and seen it, with the whole for a while, like if it fits your macros, which is like as long as your protein, carbs, and fat are this, it doesn't matter the food source. Which, yeah, technically, if you do that, yeah, you can achieve weight loss, things like that. But over time, people find that they end up with a lot of cravings. They end up binging more. It becomes unsustainable.
Yep.
So it's kind of been done, and most people find they still gravitate to whole unprocessed foods for majority of their diet. The people that it lasts and is sustainable
Exactly.
for. So dial. I mean, people want it to be an on-off switch.
On off 0 or 100.
Yep, but if they want the extremes.
It's somewhere in the middle.
And think of it, that's the problem. Most people do the extremes. Like in January, everyone hops on a diet. Whole30, I'm going to go hard, right? 0% of anything else. Only what's on this food list. And then what happens? Okay,
After the 30
that's
days,
a
what
month.
do you do?
So we spend 1 month at 0, and then the other 11 months is the majority American diet, right? Where 60% comes from unprocessed carbs.
Yeah.
So it's like boom, on, off. Nothing like the answer is in moderation.
Yeah.
It's not sexy, but
And something to remember too, like if you're the person that's at 60% of your diet that's processed, like don't feel like you have to go straight to 15 to 20% either. Like just try to do a little bit better. Make 40% or 50% of your diet processed, and just slowly make that change if that's what you need to do. Like just understanding that changing a little bit is way better than not changing at all. And if you're just slowly working towards that goal, that's completely fine. So yeah, don't ever feel like you have to do it all at once either.
yeah, like you can change one meal at a time, or one decision at a time. If normally you go out every lunch, or every weekend and you get fried chicken, like just switch to maybe unbreaded, baked or rotisserie chicken. So you're still getting to go out and have chicken in a more delicious form than just plain grilled chicken, but you're kind of making less calories per bite, right? By making that subtle switch.
But still being able to eat a decent amount of food and enjoy yourself and all of that. So
Or it could be if every day you go to Starbucks in the morning, you get some Frappuccino, grande thing, you get a muffin, and you get I don't know. What else is at Starbucks?
I don't know. I just get coffee.
Some other little trinket with that. Well,
Trinket.
switch, start small. Just do a little bit better, right? So you could maybe switch the 600-calorie drink to a 100-calorie drink, right? Some coffee with a little bit of sugar and cream. You could switch
Sugar-free
the
syrup.
muffin to like an egg
Yeah, they have a little egg sandwich or something that would be better.
or like a couple of the boiled eggs or whatever. Until you completely transform by just making little changes at a time, you transform that breakfast, right? And now you went from a completely processed breakfast, the sugar-laden, cream-laden coffee drink, the muffin, 100% highly processed breakfast, to then a 80-20 breakfast. So that is an option, people.
Yep, it is. And I think just knowing that it's an option, that you don't have to be, on or off, is important to hear for people as well. And knowing that, like, I can have anything I want within reason is also, I think, important. Because, if you told me I can't have something, if you told me I can't have a lemon cookie ever again, bro, I'm going to go hard on some lemon cookies one day.
I don't even think I've ever had a lemon cookie. But if you told me I couldn't have one, now all of a sudden I want one. I never want it. For some reason, I have a psychological block of, like, if a dessert has fruit in it, I'm like,
you don't want it?
It's trying too hard to be healthy, right? That's not a dessert. When I was a kid, no lie, I remember we had a Baskin Robbins near our house. You know, they have all the flavors. Like I was little, like 17, but Heath bar was one of them. But I always thought
It was a health bar?
because I couldn't see. I didn't get contacts till I was 16, and I never wore glasses. I always thought it said health bar.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, why would you want ice cream with a health bar in it? You know,
Like a Nutri-Grain bar.
So I was always now even to this day I have that bias towards Heath bars. You know how like something will happen and you just can't change your initial impression.
So, on that note, I don't think I've ever had a Heath bar.
Like what is it? Is it like a Snickers bar?
It's clearly not that good. No one ever really talks about them.
So lemon ice cream, Heath bar ice cream. Nah,
Don't.
man.
I'll fight you over lemon.
I need something. I needed to say chocolate
Nah.
or cookie dough.
Nah. I do like those. Cookie dough, man. That was
Heath bar.
me growing
Now
up.
I got to know everything about it. Like who is
Heath?
Was there a Mr. Heath? Let's see here. The Heath bar is a candy bar made of toffee, almonds, and milk chocolate. I mean, that sounds legit. If you know.
I have a confession. I think almonds ruin every dessert.
So I'm like I could go either way. Like I enjoy like the almond flavor. But again, a little bit of a problem. It's like a health food, right?
Yeah, you put almonds
So,
in. Like, what are you doing, man?
When
You're trying to be healthy?
if there's ice cream with almonds in it, I'm like, why are we trying to health it up?
I just don't like the flavor of
Like
almonds.
I would rather have chocolate chips
Oh,
than almonds.
yeah.
Like what are we trying to accomplish here? So
Yeah.
in fact, I don't think I would ever choose anything with almond anyway. So yeah.
Me neither, man. It
So
doesn't.
that throws, but again, yeah,
anything for
toffee,
me.
almonds, and milk
I
chocolate.
like toffee, though.
So what are the almonds for? Like crunch?
Yeah.
They're not for flavor.
Yeah, probably crunch. They're kind of waxy, though, almonds are. They have a weird texture.
Now I got to know the name though.
Who is Heath? What does he want?
They're not giving this info. Heath bar name, origin. What did people do before Google?
They just didn't know anything.
Look at this.
Two brothers.
1928. You see their names, man?
Bayard. Is it Bayard or Byard?
I'm going with Bayard.
Bayard. And Everett Heath.
Heath. There we go. It was a Mr. Heath. I knew there was a Mr. Heath involved. The dad, L.S. Heath, owned a dairy and a combination ice cream parlor candy shop in Illinois. You know what? Like, the older I get, the more history and backstories and like I just read that and I'm like, I need a documentary.
Yeah, like I need to know. Like, let me see how this started.
I'm like, you know what? I need to go find a book and
the history of Heath.
I got to know more about this dairy farm.
I do the same thing.
Diego's gonna. I mean, that sounds legit, right?
Yeah.
Like, so how do you end up with a candy bar? Like, I got to know more.
I don't know.
Like, you're just out here making milk, which unprocessed whole food,
There we go.
and you end up with a candy bar that lasts for generations.
That's almost 100 years, man.
Oh, here we go. Early on, local consumers could have Heath bars delivered with their milk.
Damn, they started that delivery subscription service early on.
Man. Oh, you want to have your wholesome milk? Let me slide this in there. You think they did the old
The first taste is free.
Yeah, the first one's on us. You eat it, it's like crack.
No one ever had anything like it.
And then I guarantee you someone was like, do we really need these almonds in here, Mr. Heath? Where do you even get almonds from at that time?
Oh, man.
I'm like, I know if you're listening right now and you want to know more.
Yeah, so if you're listening, you have the ability to really dig in on this. Hit pause.
Oh, here we go.
Stop it.
Okay, so early on, you would get it with your milk. But then in 1932, the Heath brothers slowly began marketing their candy bar internationally. What do you use, pigeons or something?
Yeah, how do you internationally market it?
There was no Facebook ads.
Yeah.
Like, who do you call? Did they even have phones back then? I don't even know.
Okay.
What did you do? What was marketing back then?
I put it in the papers?
You like put it in the pigeon's mouth?
I guess, man.
And then until 1942, the chocolate-coated English toffee Heath bars were made by hand using a copper kettle, stirring paddle, marble slab, and a rolling knife. I feel like now we're back to that. Like,
yeah, like we've gone all the way back
like
there.
somewhere someone's gonna start a artisanal candy bar store, and they're gonna make it like that.
That's actually kind of a good idea.
And then eventually, they sold out. The old Hershey company.
Yeah, well,
That's probably who added the almonds.
it probably is.
I gotta know when these almonds
Bad
got in
decision
here.
makers.
That I feel like that would be the crux of the story.
Yeah.
Like that would be the apex is the almonds.
Do you think they added them so they don't compete with their flagship?
Maybe because if it was just but I don't even know what toffee is. What is toffee?
It's like
What is caramel? How are they
it's
different?
like toffee's hard. Like it's like a
Okay, like like
almost
that's
like a,
like
it's almost like a brittle.
when you're in New Jersey on the beach. Yeah, toffee. Okay, is that what that stuff is?
We have saltwater taffy.
Come on, man.
The stretchy stuff? Is that what you're talking about?
What's wrong with my brain, man? That's how I know.
The only reason I know is because Whitney made toffee for cookies once, and it was really good. But it's like
that's
it's messy.
that's an honest mix-up, right?
Toffee taffy.
Toffee
Yeah.
and
I've
taffy.
made that mistake before too.
But could you imagine if you
Were expecting one and got the other,
you're not happy? Like a Heath bar. What if the Heath bar was almonds, milk chocolate,
saltwater taffy.
saltwater taffy? Oh man, we got problems.
Yeah.
I mean, if they did that from the start, people would have said, "Don't ever bring me this crap of my milk again."
Yeah.
But
The world would be a different place.
here we are, the old Heath bar. All right. Well, that's your history lesson.
That's it.
If you want to know more, maybe that's what we should just morph the podcast.
Just a
into.
food history podcast.
We just start telling stories. Now I got to know more about marketing in 1930.
Yeah, like what? How did you do it?
There's TV back then, right? Movies, maybe.
Yeah,
They
but
didn't
like
talk.
ish. I don't know if they
you,
had.
you think they
sound.
did like where like someone's just randomly eating a toffee bar or a Heath bar in the movie?
And then they just
Yeah,
smile.
kind of like Now. You notice how I saw this? Tell me, I was watching the karate movie or TV show.
Karate Kid.
Karate
Cobra
Kid.
Kai.
Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
And I know so now like there's no commercials, right, with Netflix. So you notice product placement more. So you know how he owns.
Is it like blatant product placement?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like how he owns, but the marketing minded me, I think, notices it more where most people wouldn't, which is
Yeah.
how it's supposed to work.
Exactly.
But he owned a car dealership, and I think I have to go back and double check. But in like the first season, it seemed pretty random. I don't even know what kind of cars they had. But this third season, for some reason, like the way they would stand, it was like Toyota, you know, like Toyota everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I was like, this is popping out.
Dude,
in my
my
mind, you
favorite
know?
is in like shows where like I don't know, they're cops or whatever, and they're driving like the new Ford Fusion, and it shows like all the different functions of the
Yeah.
car, like the navigation.
Oh, hey,
while they're
in the
doing
show,
it.
they'll be like, "Oh, snap! This car is hot."
Yeah, exactly.
You're
You're
like,
like,
it's a Ford
"Ooh, you
Fusion."
can do this. You're like, come on, man. Like,
Or
Nah.
they're drinking a Coke, but it's like
yeah,
you know,
face out.
It's like a main part of the storyline, you know, and it's all turned out and it's like pouring down their face. But they got to get the label in there.
What movie is it where they did that? Wayne's World? Where he's like, I hate when people just such sellouts and he gets more and more like gear on and stuff every time he says something.
They were ahead of their times, man.
They really were.
All right.
All right,
well,
let's leave it. Let's leave
That's it. That's all we got.
We're out. 80-20 rule.
80-20. Only save that Heath bar for 20% of the time.
Not a 40-60 rule.
Yep.
80-20.
All right, guys.
All right, see ya. As always, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to learn more, check us out at coastalfitnessva.com or garydeagle.com. We'll see you next time.